Now we're going to move straight to perspective on the programme, and his work has been described by my guest today as being an echo to the fight against all forms of discrimination. Today we're paying tribute to the American novelist, playwright and poet, also a militant activist for civil rights and the LGBTQ plus community. That's the writer James Baldwin. Now this week he would have been 100 years old. Baldwin, very much a pure New Yorker, born in Harlem, but also who left the US to move and live some of his life here in France as well. And with me here on set is Yannick Blek. He's a lecturer at Paris 9 Vincennes Saint-Denis University, author of a brand new book on James Baldwin. Here it is. Thanks very much for coming in and joining us on the programme today. First of all, for those of us who don't know James Baldwin, tell us first of all about where he came from, where his roots were.
Yeah, Baldwin was born in 1924 in New York City, Harlem, in a very poor family. He got a lot of brothers and sisters with very Christian parents. His father was a pastor, his mother was a housemaid, and so it was a family that didn't have a lot of money, and so they just lived, around Harlem, moving a lot around the country, the neighborhood, and but Baldwin was one of a kind, so he loved reading, and that was what saved him somehow, and how he became, who
he kind of prospered, I suppose.
Yeah.
He was also the victim, wasn't he, of racist violence when he was growing up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In his lifetime, he underwent a lot of racism. Especially, already when he was a kid, he was attacked by police officers when he was like 10 years old, who were searching him and who just, left him on the ground, living around. And so Baldwin was, this experience was a kind of mark in his life, and that made him evolve toward the writer and the activist, the militant he was.
When did he start turning towards writing?
He started very early when he was at school already, because he had teachers who tried to moving toward that. And then his first novel, he was like 26 years old. The conversion, Go Tell It to the Mountain, where he talked about his life, in fact, because Baldwin talked a lot about his life in his writings, so his novels, his stories, but also in his essays. So that's it.
And there were a lot of familiar themes in his writing. Tell us about those things.
Of course, the first novel, So Go Tell It on the Mountain, was about Black lives, and so that's something that a lot of people wanted him to continue to do. However, Baldwin did not just want to talk about racism. He wanted to talk about humanity, what it was like to be a Black person in the United States, and how humanity was stripped from them because of that. So familiar themes like racism, but also sexuality, but also what it meant to be an American and what it meant to be a human being in the world, in the Western world. So as you said in your introduction, he lived in Paris. And so Paris was kind of a place where he could become familiar with who he was as a human being, and not just as a Black person.
So it was a bit like him being able to express his own freedom, if you like, by coming here to France and perhaps things being a little bit more acceptable to ordinary people? Yeah.
Paris, France was a kind of, of a revelation place, a place of epiphany, where he managed to understand who he was and where he was in this American society that, made him up. So that's how he started to do his research on himself, but also on where he could stand as a person in this country. And what is interesting is that when he was in the United States, he was black, but when he was in France, he was American. So that's, how he understood what it meant to be an American and to be a black American.
And when he was alive and when he was writing, how much of effect did his work have at the time?
The thing with Baldwin is that he had a short but at the same time long span in his writing. At the beginning, he was a real noticed after his first and second novel, and also especially after his first collection of essays, Notes of a Native Son, that was published in 1955. And then with time, there was a kind of decrease in his influence. But today, Baldwin is still well known because of the effect of his writing, universalism, but also, something that is out of time. A writing that still has some influence on today's world. And so for him to write was to put something, to put the truth out there. And this truth is still relevant today.
Yeah, while you're talking there, we're seeing some images from the 2016 documentary film, I'm Not Your Negro, based on his unfinished manuscript, Remember This House. The film was nominated, you may remember, at the Oscars, also won the BAFTA, didn't it, award for Best Documentary. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, watching these images and hearing what you're telling us, just how much that work still resonates today.
This work resonates because a lot of people, when I talk to people, they tell me, well, I do not really know who Baldwin was, and ask them, but do you know who Martin Luther King was, who Malcolm X was? And they, of course, everybody knows. And this film, Remember This House, was based on the lives of those people. So Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Edward, so three men that Baldwin knew and loved, and who worked with him. So he was a part of those people's lives. And the influence that he has is that, I'm Not Your Negro reminds of those people, but also of how Baldwin worked in this community, the black community during the civil rights movement, and also after the civil rights movement, because he died in 1987, so the civil rights movement was already finished. But the repercussions of racism in the United States and in the Western world were still felt.
I mean, it must have been joyful, I suppose, for him to see how much changed during his lifetime, with the hope, of course, that more will change in the future.
Of course, he understood, the Civil Rights Acts of 1964, of 1968, the Voting Rights Act, etc. But he also considered that the work was not done yet because racism was still there. So of course you've got, joy and happiness with the achievements of the civil rights movement, but the American society is still today based on racism, and so Baldwin was really aware of this situation, and so he continued to work on that for a long time until his death.
Tell us a bit about you and the book as well. I mean, what gave you the inspiration and the want and the desire to write the book, and what do you hope that the book shows?
Well, Baldwin wrote 6 novels, collections of essays, a lot of essays, in fact, and all of them are based on situations of his life. He did take part in the civil rights movement and in other movements too, but something I wanted to understand was how really his life influenced his writing, and to make the link between the two, because he understood that you could not talk about the United States without talking about the people themselves, their lives, their experiences, but also their culture. And so that's what I wanted to show in this book. So how Baldwin linked his life to his work, and this is really relevant. So that's why I hope this book is going to be important for the readers.
I'm sure it will be. Just in French at the moment?
At the moment, yes. But
Hoping to translate it?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Well, at the moment, there it is, the book James Baldwin by Yannick M. Blek, lecturer at Paris 9 University, Saint-Denis University, author of that book, James Baldwin. Thanks very much for coming
Thank you very much.
Talking to us about it today here on The World Today. Thanks very much.